Hello, welcome to Talk to Martin. It's March 2019. It's still very cold and very snowy here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Like many people in the Midwest, we're waiting for spring to begin and warm weather to arrive. It's not quite here yet, but I'm sure we'll get there. If you have seen any of the previous episodes of this show, we're going to do this a little differently today. The last times I had a live broadcast during the recording, and it was nice because people could chat through YouTube, ask questions that way, and comment. And I loved that interactive format. However, it was very, very difficult for me, just one person, to focus on both the show, the dialogue, the conversation, and all the technical aspects of a live broadcast. And that was more difficult than what I could handle, quite honestly. So we're going to do this a little differently. There's a recording of all the conversations one day, and then I'll cut it together, and the next day you can see it on YouTube, and hopefully this will make for a more polished final result, more enjoyable to watch without you having to wait while I figure out how the technology works. Everyone that participates is entering a drawing for a $25 Sporties gift card, so if you want to join in a future show and have a conversation here, ask a question or share a story, please sign up on my website, and then you too can win that gift card. So before we get to the first caller, I just have to say a few words about winter. You may have seen that video I posted a couple of weeks ago about winter flying, to give you a taste of what it takes to get the plane out of the hangar and into the air. Once the plane is flying, winter is great. We have great climb rates, great performance, great visibility, great everything. But to get to that point, it can be really painful. And I am so ready to have this winter over with and move to warmer weather and sunshine and longer days and all those good things. It's been brutally cold. It's been much more snowy than usual. And you would think that now that it's March, the end is in sight, but looking at the forecast, no, far from it. We still have a lot of cold days and more snowfall coming before, hopefully, later in March, it then warms up. All right, enough whining about winter. Here's our first caller.
Hello, Martin.
Hello, is this Paul?
This is.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Paul, in your email you said Mountain Time, but that's a big area. Where are you? Where are you at?
We're in Denver. It's 2:40-ish Denver time.
Okay. Denver, yeah, I've visited Denver a few times. Not in the winter. I've been there in the spring and in the summer. But my understanding is your winters are a lot nicer than our winters here further east. So what has it been like for you? Has it been a normal winter, or have you had one of those really miserable cold ones like we have? Or?
For probably about 20 or so years, the winters have gotten more mild in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
We have smaller snows. We don't get the huge snows that we used to get, and they're a lot wetter, and heavier. So today we're getting, it was supposed to be big snow. The mountains are getting about 2 feet, but we right now have a trace, but the next 24 hours should be some kind of snow event for us.
Paul, which airport do you fly out of, and what do you fly?
So I fly out of, professionally, I'm a airline guy with Frontier out of Denver.
Oh, okay.
But I fly a V-35A out of Centennial. Just flew a few times yesterday.
Okay.
Flew in the morning, warmed up the oil, changed the oil, and then ran a leak check, and then just flew it around the pattern just to make sure everything was good. And so a couple quick flights yesterday. But the weather came in pretty quick, so it was getting really cold by the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then for your job, I know we have Frontier servicing Cedar Rapids. I think they fly an A320 in here once a day or a few times a week. Is that what you fly for a living?
Yes, A320s, 321s. Anywhere from 180 to 230 passengers.
Mm-hmm. The company I work for, I work in an avionics company here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and until 2 years ago, my customer was Airbus. So I've been to Toulouse many times where the A320 and other Airbus airplanes are made. Saw the assembly line there. That's quite amazing. You're thinking of how they crank out almost 2 airplanes a day from this factory right now. And it's little dated technology. It's an older design from the 1980s, but from what I hear, it's still a very reliable airplane and workhorse that helps make money.
Yeah, it seems like the airlines are very dated a lot of times with their equipment. However, for this kind of structured flying we do, repetitive, very standardized flying, a lot of that bodes well for that. If we get too far deep into the technology, a lot of times it makes it more difficult for cruise interaction. Even this airplane, with what is now older technology, still finds issues and problems with integrating between human and technology or computer type issues.
Right. Yeah, and one big change that is talked about a lot is autonomous airplanes, right? They don't need pilots anymore.
Right.
And on a step, or a step on that way is then the single pilot aircraft, which I don't know how close we are to these things. They make me wonder, what's coming. I mean, single pilot. The one thing I can't get my head around is what's going to take place of the training, getting experience that first officers get today, flying with an experienced captain before they become captains themselves. How are we going to bridge that gap in a single pilot environment where a new pilot becomes the sole pilot of an airplane right away?
Well, it's interesting. You're going through your commercial and you're thinking way ahead of the game. Not many people are able to grasp that concept. Probably one of the key things I learned early in the airline world was that I flew with a guy who said the best captains, the best first officers make the best captains. And the rationale is there's a learning step that has to be acquired by sitting in the right seat or the first officer seat. And it's not something that can be learned over a couple of years. There's a lot of value over 4 or 5 years, in some cases 8, 10 years, mm-hmm. that you could call it a maturation or a growth stage, a learning stage. In the airline world, the difficulty is you could see people leapfrog and miss those stages, those development stages. And I think there's an element there that as an airline, you have to make sure you compensate or recover. You can do that through extra simulators and so on, but sometimes real-world experience just is more critical or more important for a lot of decision-making.
What's a typical flight in your Bonanza like for you? Do you fly locally? Do you fly in the mountains, or do you use it for cross-country flights when you travel personally?
So it's an unusual Bonanza. It has a TIO 541 engine in it. It's 380 horsepower.
Oh, yeah.
It was converted in the late 80s by Daryl Greenemeyer. He's a former Reno air racer, kind of a famous pilot. Daryl passed away last year, but they designed and built this airplane to accommodate the air racing and actually do some air racing. And so for this aircraft to fly, it's got an experimental certificate. It's experimental exhibition. So I have to be going to an event, which is really kind of nice because it's an opportunity to meet other people, other aviators. And and learn from their experiences, and just to get to meet other people. But so most trips are to either air shows or open houses that occur. But lately, last summer, a few Kansas trips, which were really nice, just 400-mile trips, which are really ideal for this airplane. It's a high-altitude airplane. It prefers to fly at 23 to 25,000 feet. It goes fairly in the cruise mode, like an economy type mode. I would be at about 190 knots true airspeed, but it's capable of 230 or even more true airspeed. But you'll burn a lot of gas, so it's a fun equation to run to evaluate what speed, what altitude, and so on. In the end, it becomes a lot about economy. What's the best, most inexpensive way to travel?
Right. Well, one thing that may take me to Denver sometime is, as you may know, I like to take my Bonanza to large airports, and Denver International is one I haven't been to yet. So that's still on the bucket list. By the way, since you fly into that airport professionally, you must be very familiar with it. Is there anything special, anything different about Denver that I should know compared with I don't know, Chicago, St. Louis, DFW, or is it all very much the same?
Very much the same. In a lot of ways, it's easier. It's as long as the weather is not too difficult. If you came in and it was solid IFR, they have a more difficult time. But that shouldn't keep you away from it. I've seen in your other videos where you've gone in and out of large airports like that, IFR, and a lot of them are more accommodating. I'm just amazed how well Boston did with you, and so it's interesting. I don't know from a smaller aircraft how that would work with Denver, but they're in and out of Denver all the time. The freighters are smaller aircraft, so I don't think it would be a great difficulty at all. So you really are doing some cool stuff. So keep up the good work. It's good.
Thank you. All the best.
Mark.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was Paul from Denver. Thank you, Paul. As the new flying season is starting, you may have some personal goals, fly to a new airport, or take a plane on a vacation trip, or learn something new, whatever that may be. For me, that goal for 2019 is to get my commercial certificate, and then to finish the twin engine training that I started a couple of months ago. Another goal is in a few weeks I'll fly to Florida, and then I'll stay for Sun and Fun. I've never been to Sun and Fun. Been to Oshkosh a few times, but Sun and Fun will be a nice change of scenery and weather here. You're trading the snow and cold and ice in for some warm weather, hopefully dry weather. We'll see. You never know at Sun and Fun. And I really look forward to that, and to meeting people there and having a good time. At Sun and Fun also, I will give a couple of presentations on Friday and Saturday. So if you are there and you're interested, would love to have you there. Two topics. One is mixture management and lean of peak operations, and the other one is how to make flying videos. And if that interests you, please stop by. Times are here on the screen. Again, Friday and Saturday in this first week of April here at Sun and Fun in Lakeland, Florida. And another call. This time it's Emily. Emily is calling from the Chicago area. Hello, Emily.
Hi.
So are you a pilot yourself, Emily?
No, not yet. Right now I'm too young to start flying and get my license yet. But I've been into aviation for about 7 years now. And do you know what Young Eagles is?
Yes, I do.
I've been flying with them, and I met a great mentor through that. And yeah, so I'm excited, and I want to get my glider's license, then get my pilot's license, and yeah.
Start with gliders, okay. Where can you do that? Where, or where do you live, and where's the nearest airport to you?
I'm at like Clow, so in Bolingbrook.
Okay, yeah.
So this is where I like start and everything. And yeah, so right now my mentor and his friend recently got a flight school, which I'm at right now, working or like helping out.
Yeah, so Clow Bolingbrook, for people that don't know that, that's a Chicago suburb. And
Yeah.
I think the airport is, I don't know if it's jokingly or if it's called international, but they call themselves Bolingbrook Clow International, right? Do they have customs, or where did that name come from?
I'm not for sure, but it's Clow International Airport in Bolingbrook.
Yeah. And I know they have a pretty neat restaurant on the field. I've been there a few times for breakfast.
Charlie's.
Yes.
Charlie's. Yeah, the people are really nice there, and yeah.
Yeah.
My goal is to get my glider's license, and then my private pilot, my student license, and then private pilots, and then maybe commercial.
Yeah. If you learn to fly gliders, if you start flying gliders, there are a lot of things you'll learn about meteorology, because you so much depend on the weather and thermals. And you also learn a lot about coordinated flying, using the rudder and aileron in combination. That is lost on many pilots that start in airplanes, where those things are not that important. So I think if you take that route, you'll learn a few very valuable skills that will help you down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Good. May I ask how old you are, Emily?
14 this coming.
14. Okay, so you're still at the very beginning of the whole flying thing then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So, what got you started in, or what got you first interested in flying?
Have you ever heard of Cavalcade?
No, I have not.
Here
What is
that? So Cavalcade is kind of like an Oshkosh, except it's way smaller. And we do it here at the Clow Airport, and it's in June, I believe. And so we host this. We have airplanes and everything. And my grandfather brought 7 years ago, and I got a flyer for EAA for the Young Eagles.
Right.
And then I came and started flying and fell in love with it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So just think that a few years in the future, when you have your pilot's license and little experience under your belt, you can be flying Young Eagles, and there might be some kids that that you can take up for their first airplane ride. And I always enjoy that. We have Young Eagles rallies here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where I live, and nearby airports. And there are many fun moments in flying, but seeing the excitement on the face of a child who's never flown before, in many cases, never experienced that before, is quite rewarding for the pilot, and I'm sure quite fun for the child too. So those are great things.
Is there any advice you have for me?
Hearing that you have a mentor that you know, that you're familiar with, that's really reassuring, and that is somebody who can help you along the way, much more than I can with a quick phone call here. The only thing I often tell people when they start and when they ask me, hey, what should I do, is when you start flying for real and you pick an instructor, don't feel like you're stuck with the first instructor you pick. It's really, really important that the chemistry is right between the instructor and the student, And
Yeah.
too many people have been turned away from this nice, fun hobby by having been in a relationship with an instructor that didn't quite work out, where they felt they had to stay for some reason or another, when in fact they had choices, and probably didn't realize it at the time. So I wish you the best for that journey, and hope that your first instructor is brilliant, and that you get along well with him or her. But if not, don't feel like you have to continue with that person, and look around, meet some new people. And sometimes it's good to just occasionally fly with somebody different, because people explain concepts and techniques in different ways, and you can always learn something by running through the same concept again with somebody else, just seeing it from a different angle, hearing it explained in different terms. So that would also be something I would that's also something I tell people that start flight training.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Emily, thank you. I wish you all the best, and maybe in a few years, when you're a licensed pilot, maybe we'll run into each other at an event at Oshkosh or one of these places, and
Yeah.
take care, and I wish you good luck.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. I went flying this morning. I'm currently working on my commercial certificate, so I went out with my instructor and we did lazy eights and chandelles and fun things. And I noticed how good it was to have a south-facing hangar. Look at this picture here. This is my hangar. This is 70 Tango Bravo. And look at the front of the hangar, and then look at the other side here. These are the north-facing hangars. And look at how much snow is piled up there. It's really quite amazing, quite a difference. So if I didn't know this, when I got the hangar, it was pure luck that the one I was offered and the one I took was south-facing. From here on, anywhere in the country where snow is a factor for much of the year, do yourself a favor. Do not get a north-facing hangar. It's icy, people slip, it's a lot of shoveling, a lot of ice scraping, and I have my fair share of that here with a south-facing hangar too, but after a few days of sunshine at least, all the snow and ice goes away. The north-facing ones, not so much. All right, our next caller is Mark from Port Clinton, Ohio. Hello, Mark, welcome. Mark, where is home, and what are you flying?
My home is in Sandusky, Ohio. I'm flying out of Port Clinton or Erie, Ottawa Airport.
Mm-hmm.
I'm flying an Archer. And there's been 2 episodes in my life to where I've started flying and stopped, and this is sort of the second iteration of that. I had not flown for 17 years. I'm originally from Akron, and I met someone who lives in Sandusky, and she's started a nonprofit 20 years ago serving seniors. And so whenever I have a chance to speak, I always say, watch what happens when you meet a social advocate, because your life is about to change in ways you can't imagine.
Uh-huh.
I had just gotten my instrument rating, and I hadn't flown since then until this past summer, when she suggested, I think it's time for you to go back. You enjoyed it so much. But as I relate to you in our emails, there's a degree of frustration because I think I'm much more conscious of the importance of competency. And that comes with, for me, it comes with consistency. And right now I'm renting a plane. It's down for 50 hours, it's down for 100 hours, it's down for engine changes. And so it's a struggle to stay efficient, competent, and so I really would like to find a way that seasoned pilots can share that right seat with people, so there's a chance to mentor in that phase when you're new with a private or you're new with an instrument rating,
I think it'd be great to have some system to where you can ride along and be in the actual situations and see all the different nuances that pop up that you just don't plan for, and build some consistency that otherwise it's hard to build.
Right.
There are many, many private hangars, so most of them are in private hangars, and their names and contact is confidential information.
What comes to mind is when I look at activity at an airport that brings people together and allows you to get to know your hangar neighbors. The shining example that I can think of is Mason City, Iowa. It's about 45 minutes northwest of here by air, where one of the pilots there and flight instructors hosts a monthly barbecue every third Thursday of the month. There's a barbecue that's immensely popular with local pilots, but also pilots from about a 200-mile radius. Everybody knows everybody at that airport, and I think it's in large part because they have this social event where at a certain day and time of the month, everyone can join, everyone is invited, and a lot of relationships I know have formed because of that event. I don't know if you have...
That sounds like a great suggestion, and I think that in all probability with all the restaurants and things in the area, we probably could get somebody to help sponsor that too. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. It doesn't take much. You need a little space, you need a barbecue, and ask everyone to bring something to throw on the grill and a side dish to share, and there you go. And I'm sure the word will spread, and more people will show up.
Well, we have that museum there too, which has lots of space. Mm-hmm. So I think that I think that's a great suggestion. We have the space, and I think that would be a pretty attractive event. It's not exactly the traditional fly-in; it's just a get-together. And I wanted to take a minute to say too, if you ever come back to KPCW, we're going to show you some of our hospitality. And,
yeah, that I've always found that place, that airport, pretty welcoming. I have been to the Tin Goose Diner, I think is the name, a couple of times. I have not yet been to the little museum that you have on the field. Is that worth the visit?
I think it is. With my flying, I don't want to just go flying. I want to be able to go places. And so as I've been traveling to other airports, they have somewhat of a museum. This is the real thing. The gentleman who owns it has put a tremendous amount of money into it and continues to build the attraction. So I think it is a place worthwhile going, and I think they bring in B-25s and things during the summer too for flights, and so I think it's a well-supported museum, which is good to see. Hmm. Another topic that's become in my thinking is about the value of airports. And so I do want to start trying. Typically, what I try to do, and I'm still going. I am current, but I've been flying with an instructor, and I'm trying to do a couple of trips a month, and go to an airport within a couple of hours. And what I want to start doing is talking to the airport managers of those small airports and find out how that airport has an economic impact on their communities, because I think that's another missing element, is what is the importance. There's such a disconnect between communities, residents, and public officials, and the value of the airport. They're almost oblivious to where it is, let alone what it does and what value it has. And so I do want to start talking to airport managers and build those relationships. In my research, there are 680 airports within a 2.5-hour range of Port Clinton. And so maybe there's a chance to build a relationship within that group to help promote airports and the value they have to each community.
It's probably a challenge that many airports across the country or around the world are facing, right? Everybody knows they provide some value, but to quantify that and to use that to justify investment or maintenance expenses can be quite difficult, because it's hard to put a dollar figure against those values.
And most of those communities are so small, they don't have economic development people to develop that information to be able to justify the investment. So, maybe that's a role that I can help with. And perhaps when you do your breakfast series, when you go to those airports, you can ask, what businesses does the airport support? Because my contention is there's in every community there's some company that's producing something that some little widget that they're marketing nationally or internationally, and that there's some connection to the airport with salespeople and things coming in to meet with them. So I think I'd like to start discovering what those connections are and what those companies are, and promote that relationship.
Okay, thanks for making time for this, Mark. Pleasure talking with you, and have a safe flying season.
You as well. Take care.
Bye-bye. That was Mark Norman from Port Clinton, Ohio. If you would like to participate in a future episode, go to the website. There's a form there where you can leave me your name, a way to contact you, and a topic you'd like to chat about. And as always, you'll be eligible to win a $25 gift card if you participate in the next show. Our next caller is Andy. Andy is from St. Louis. Hello, Andy. Are you there?
Hey, Martin. All right, man. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How's your day going?
You know what? Good so far. I'm like everybody else. I'm ready for winter to be over.
Yes.
I actually got one of the airplanes out the other day. I was so excited. I was like, just so happy to be running the engine.
Yes. And how far north to south are you?
Well, we're in St. Louis, so I'm not maybe an hour flight south of you, or hour and a half maybe, but almost due south. So St. Louis, right here in the middle, the gateway city. You may have covered some of these topics to me, but I'm always, hey, who's the guy behind the camera? Who's the guy doing that? I want to know a little bit more about him. So tell me that. You're from Germany?
Correct. Yeah, I was born and raised in Germany. Went to college there. Had a first job after college in southern Germany.
Doing what?
I was a software engineer. I got a degree in computer science from the university in Aachen, that's far western Germany.
Okay.
Worked as a software engineer doing avionics work in a small subsidiary of a large company, and that subsidiary was closed. It was 2 weeks into the job that they had an all hands and said, folks, we'll close it. So it took a little longer for the closure to actually happen, but to cut a long story short, out of several offers and opportunities I had at the time, I picked one here in Iowa, also working on avionics, and I've been with that company ever since. So it's a little over 20 years now.
So you're in avionics?
Yes.
Okay, so how did you get into aviation? I mean, was it because you're working on avionics and you just were like, oh, yeah?
No, it was the other way around. I've always liked airplanes. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I remember the conversation I had with an uncle on my dad's side of the family, who in his younger days was a pilot. And then actually a little later, after I started flying, he started again to also fly. We had a family gathering. I forgot what the occasion was, but for some reason we got to the topic of flying, and he started talking about how he had flown, how airplanes work, how lift is created, all these things. And I remember that from that moment on, from that conversation on, I was hooked. And then it took a little time, a few more years before I was 14 years old. That was the minimum age to start flying gliders in Germany.
Okay.
Which I started then, and I've been flying ever since.
Hooked ever since.
Yeah.
So when did you get your private?
I got my private pilot certificate 3 times. I got I got it in Germany when I was in college, so the German certificate. Then in the late 90s, when I moved to the US, I went to the FISDO here and got a US certificate that was issued based on the German certificate.
So there was reciprocity for the German certificate, and so you didn't have to take a test, written or flying. Or,
correct. I walked in with my German certificate, and I came out with a German and an American certificate, and it didn't even cost anything. They didn't charge me for it at the time, at least, and I thought, oh, this is paradise.
This is
that
awesome.
would not have happened the other way around. I can tell you that.
All right, that's the second time. How about third?
Yeah. So the thing about the certificate that's based on a foreign certificate is it said something along the lines of only valid when accompanied by German pilot certificate number so and so. And unlike U.S. certificates, German certificates actually expire. They've actually had a pretty big change to their certification system since I moved here. That may be different today, but at the time, my German certificate, which I still have, has an expiration date, and it's expired.
So when it expired, your private pilots.
I said, what can I do to get rid of this limitation and just have a U.S. private pilot certificate without any dependency on a foreign certificate?
Yeah.
And after talking with flight instructors and the FISDO, which the instructors referred me to, the answer was, well, you have to start from scratch. So I took the written.
Oh my gosh.
I took some instruction. I went for check ride. That was in a very condensed time because it wasn't really anything I hadn't done before, right? But I had to go through the different steps again formally, check the boxes, and that was the third time I got my private pilot certificate. The funny thing was, in the meantime, I had gotten my instrument rating in the U.S. So So was your instrument tacked on top of the license that you had here, but which was required you having the German certificate? The big question here is, once you got your private, did they honor the instrument rating? They did, yes.
Okay.
So I remember the examiner actually did some research because he had not run into a situation like that before. So I had this handwritten temporary certificate, which was private pilot with instrument. And he said he had never issued that before.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, because I took that test in the US, I did not have to do that over. But everything else I had to do over. And it wasn't a big deal. It was some instruction. It was getting re-familiar with the maneuvers that I had to demonstrate and studying a little bit for the written.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a huge deal.
So was your goal to own? I'm sure you rented a lot. Was your goal to own? And then how did you end up in the Bonanza?
Yeah, it was less, it was not so much a goal that I just had to have my own airplane. But with Becky and the three girls that we have, renting or even being in the partnership, I was in a partnership of a Piper Arrow for several years, and it was a fine airplane, and we took many nice trips with it. But with 5 of us and 4 seats, you always have a problem when the whole family wants to go. So looking for a solution to how can the whole family fly, I quickly realized that there just isn't anything here that I can rent that allows us to do that.
Yeah.
And that made me look towards something like a Piper Lance or Saratoga, that would have been a simple step up from the Arrow.
Yeah, that's true.
I had heard a lot about Bonanzas, but I've actually never flown in one before I started looking for buying one, and that ended up being what I bought, and we've been
chose the Bonanza over a Cherokee 6 or a Saratoga or a Lance. Yeah. So how did that go when you flew the Bonanza? Just you were like, oh, this is exactly what this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it was. It's an airplane that feels exceptionally nice when you fly it. I mean, the hand flying characteristics are just fantastic.
Solid. Yeah.
In terms of performance and cost, it's a good compromise, I would say. And all airplanes are compromise, right? Whether you fly a Piper Cup or a Boeing 747, right? In terms of speed and payload and fuel consumption, it's a compromise. And the Lance or Saratoga would have been a little roomier, but also a little slower and burn more gas. The build quality of these beach airplanes is phenomenal. You know, even though they're getting old. You know, mine is a 1978. It's still in very, very good shape. But maybe
mine's a 57, by the way. I have a 1950. Mine's a 57.
Oh, okay.
Age 35. So I'm flying a V-tail, and a 57 V-tail.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's still. I mean, it's amazing. You know, I mean, it's old, and I have to continually do things to keep it alive. But hey, it's such a solid aircraft.
How long have you owned it?
So kind of weird, and I mean crazy. I'll give you. I'll do this Reader's Digest. You can ask questions if you want. But so I told you, my dad. I grew up on a farm in Mississippi. So I grew up in the middle of nowhere, the least populated county in Mississippi, which Mississippi's already a rural place, on a farm. My dad had been an engineer for NASA during the Apollo years. Worked with one of your German compadres, Werner von Braun, you know, very famous guy. And so ended up, my grandfather wanted him to farm with his little brother. And so my dad said, okay. And so I grew up with sort of an eclectic dad who would just invent things or build. If he thought he wanted something on the farm, he would build it or design it. And so I didn't really, what's really weird is he was already a pilot, and I just sort of took it for granted. This is how every kid grew up. You know, hey, we fly airplanes and, you know, and do all these things that that's how you do as a kid. You don't know any different. Yeah. So he loved old aircraft, and we had some old crop dusters. He had a Stearman. There's a plane called a Clark. You know, people can look that up. It's a modified Stearman. It's got different wings. He ended up crashing the Stearman. It's a long story, but then we ended up with an AGCAT. So we had an incredible Grumman G64 AGCAT, a 600 horsepower AGCAT, awesome airplane. I got to fly it as a 17, 18-year-old kid. So I got my license. You know, I kind of like you. I started flying when I was 5 with him in an airplane and knew I was going to be a pilot and fly it. Soloed, but when it came time for me to get my license, he said, hey, I don't want to have anything to do with you. You're going to go to, you know, another school. So I was in Piper products, like an Warriors and Archers, even though I'd been flying in old airplanes. Like growing up, my dad would sort of barter and trade old aircraft. So we had a Fairchild 24 with a and they can have a couple of different engines on them. We had a Cessna 140 at one point, a 170 at one point. Most all these were tail draggers. If you're noting the models, everything we had, and then we had a Super Cub and a Cessna 190 with a Continental on it, and so. I really didn't know much about, this is really weird, but we have a turf strip. So I had never been on a lot of improved strips. I'd never been on a lot of paved strips. And I had never flown a plane with a nose wheel on it, which is really odd because it's almost the other way around. Yeah. Guys go, I've never flown a tail dragger, and I'm nervous about landing on your turf strip. Yeah. Well, I was really nervous about being on concrete or pavement, and so as I grew up, that's sort of what I was used to, and then obviously sort of moved into nose wheel aircraft as I was taking lessons and stuff. But the farm was, I guess, long story short, Dad and I restored a Cessna 195. The one that I'm in now, and took us a few years. We kind of restored it and got it back, and Great airplane has a Jacobs 300 horsepower engine on the front, 7-cylinder radial. You can fill them with gas, 80 gallons, and put 5 people in it and load it with baggage, and it still acts like it does when it's empty. I mean, it actually flies a little bit better when you put a lot in it. So that's what I started flying around, later in, and ended up. I like to restore aircraft, so I found an old J3 Cub and a Maul M5, which is sort of a bush plane. Restored the J3 Cub. My dad was about finished restoring it. He was in the wings when he died, so we kind of finished it, and last summer flew it for the first time, sort of celebrated his, him by doing that. I flipped them all. I restored it and then sold it. And with those funds, I got the Bonanza H-35. So that was the first time. I've had the Bonanza almost 2 years now. Or okay. I've had the Bonanza a year and a half. And I've flown it everywhere. It's such a great aircraft. Yes. I mean, it's just, this thing, the H is the beginning of the sort of the new model. They were a little bit different before. It's still got a pretty light airframe. This one has an upgraded IO 470N, so it's 260 or so horsepower and got a great prop on it, and it's been a real fun aircraft. I've been very impressed with the Bonanza. So now, how far? Bahamas for you? What's the farthest you've taken the Bonanza?
West Coast was the farthest. I've not taken it outside of the U.S. yet. I've been as far south as Key West, as far north as Boston on the East Coast, and on the West Coast from San Francisco down to San Diego. So that describes the area where I've been.
Okay, I have to ask you. So, obviously you've got a lot. I don't know if you're known for this. This is how I know you. Is the guy who doesn't mind flying up into a Class Bravo airport, which is kind of cool, and it helps. I think it helps a lot. Honestly, I hope a lot of people who watch your channel, are getting that, or are able to watch that and go, okay, that's doable. Another question for you: have you flown it into Oshkosh yet?
Yes, I have once. That was 3 years or so ago. And it was only for a day. It's been a while since I've been to Oshkosh. I'm actually thinking I'll go again this year for 2 or 3 days maybe. But back 3 years ago, I flew in just for a day, arrived early morning, left after the air show, and for the day. Just for the day, and we got there when it was starting to get busy, but it wasn't crazy busy yet.
Okay, that was what I was going to ask you. What made me think of whether you've been in Oshkosh is you're saying, hey, I'm flying into these big Class Bravo airports. You got to be on your toes. You got to be, and I'm thinking, have you ever flown into Oshkosh when it's busy? Because that's worse than a Class Bravo airport.
It is, yeah, it is.
Any moments flying when you've thought, boy, I could have done that better? And the reason I ask is, everybody loves great stories. Everybody loves to hear places you've been and all the good news. And so everybody loves that. What I find is that people, we don't want to admit when we could have done things better a lot of times, but that's when other people learn better. I learned that with my kids. I used to tell them how great I was and how many A's I made in school and how all the great choices I made. And finally, as teenagers, they said, hey, we're tired of hearing all the great things. Tell us how you screwed up, because that's how we learn. So I don't know. Is there anything that you have that you go, boy, I wish I could do that one again?
Yeah, that was
but non-incriminating.
The second example I was going to mention, it was on the ground in St. Louis International last fall.
Right here.
I had just landed, was instrument conditions, like 400-foot overcast, light rain, not really pleasant weather. And I had landed on that runway that was kind of off to the south, the remote runway.
Oh yeah, that was $1 billion
it's a pretty long taxi all the way to the far opposite end to the FBO.
It's a long way.
Yeah. And I got really confused with the taxi there.
Okay.
And I the ground controller was probably getting very tired of me.
Because were you going to Signature?
It's going to Signature there, right?
Because Signature, if people don't know, and you could look at that taxi diagram, but that runway that you're on is really, it's farther, it's all west of the airport.
Yes.
This was an added runway that's way west of the airport anyway.
And then you roll out at the far
and then you
western
roll out at
end,
the
you
far
taxi all the way to the
east end,
northeast corner.
and Signature is on the east north end of the entire runway. So
Precisely.
it is absolutely the longest taxi you could have had at that airport. Yeah.
I recorded that. I had trouble with the audio recorder. I don't know how much of that I can salvage, and I'm wondering if I should turn that into a video. That would be a good example of how not to do it. I was after flying all day. I was a little tired after flying in IMC, thinking about icing, and excuses. But I got confused by some of the instructions the ground controller gave me, and one of the really nice things about making these videos for me is that I can replay the flight.
Sure.
And
you can learn
and figure
basically
out what went wrong. And I can tell you there isn't a flight that I look at afterwards where I don't detect some things that I look at and say, hey, I should have done that differently. And usually it's little things, sometimes it's bigger things, but I think that's part of the challenge that we all face, right? Is to question ourselves and always try to aim for perfection, knowing we can't quite get there, but try to get as close as we can and learn from the mistakes.
As one of your subscribers, from all of us, and I know I'm speaking for people, but you're putting yourself out there. You're the one that's doing it. But I will tell you, that's what we do. I watch and I learn. And it's not that we're being critical of you. What I do is I'm flying along and I'm going, oh, that was good. I should have read back my clearance like that. Or, oh, yeah, he's pretty calm in there. Look at that. He's up next. But also when we see things and go, well, I'm learning from the video. So that's the beauty of this modern day where we can all subscribe to see what you've been doing. So, but it's kind of, I can think of lots of times when I've been saturated and, thank goodness, keep the videos coming. I'm not asking for you to get saturated, but it's been really good for us to learn and watch. So,
all right.
That's good, man. Holler at me. See ya.
Thanks again. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. You too. Bye.
And that was Andy from St. Louis. Our next call doesn't have Skype, but we can connect to phone conversations as well. So here's Ron. Welcome, Ron.
So the question I had, I saw on one of the videos, and it was one of the most recent videos about you were shoveling snow to get your plane out, or shoveling ice to get your plane out, and you had panned around the hangar, and I saw that you had this thing that turned on the oil preheat.
Right.
And it looked like I think it was a GSM type of circuit. And that's what I sort of had said in my email. I have looked at those because I put a easy oil heater on my Bonanza. I have a V-tail Bonanza. Mm-hmm. And I'm interested in how you set it up. It's a little confusing about whether you use a T-Mobile card or an AT&T card, or whether the reception inside of a hangar will work. And it looks like you bought a switch box, because there seems to be two units. There's a U-phone-it, and then there's a switch box. And there's a switch box 2G, and then there's a switch box 4G.
Right.
So I'm a little confused, and that's what I wanted to sort of talk to you about, as to, how you did it, what you recommend, and if it's working properly for you. You're in a lot colder. I'm in Tennessee. You're in a lot colder place than I am, and probably use it much more frequently. But still, it's nice to have. So that was my question, basically.
Okay. Yeah, I can share a little bit about that. And there, as you said, there are several different products available and different flavors of these products. And what works and how well it works is probably very dependent on the region where you are, and how your airport is covered by particular cell phone providers, and how strong the signal there is.
Right.
You're right. The one I have is called Switchbox. If you Google that term, you'll find the product. There are several others, and there's more and more home automation stuff available that is not really meant for aviation, but if you have Wi-Fi at your hangar or a hotspot in your hangar to create Wi-Fi, that would be an easy way to have an outlet that's switchable from far away. Mine is.
I don't have Wi-Fi, but inside the hangar, since it's all metal, are you having trouble with reception even if there is good coverage? Do you have trouble with reception?
I have very good reception in my hangar, and yes, it is all metal. I'm sure that makes it more difficult, but the coverage at our airport is apparently so good that despite the metal, it works really well. I have the 2G version and a T-Mobile account, which I found was the cheapest way to do that.
Right.
But again, depending on where you are, a different carrier may work better, or a different product that allows you to work with different carriers may work better. It's hard to give a recommendation that works for everyone.
Right. Do you use the external antenna that comes with it?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I have it inside the hangar, no external antenna, and I've never had problems with it in terms of not reaching it. The one problem I do have occasionally with it is this switch box is a little computer with hardware and with software running in it, and it does happen every now and then that it gets hung up on something and then it doesn't respond. That's rare, but it does happen. So I always need to have a backup plan. If I can't activate the switch from my cell phone, then I need to drive out. And all it takes is unplugging the switch box, plugging it back in, and then it works again for several months. But,
sort of rebooting it.
Yeah, I don't believe that has anything to do with the antenna being inside or the hangar being metal. It's just a computer, and computers act up every now and then.
Right. So tell me, do you usually text it or do you usually call it? Because the text can give you an indication that it's on, but when you call it, you don't get that message back.
Exactly. I text it for that exact reason. I want to get the confirmation back that it is on or off, and text message is the easy way to do that with this product.
Gotcha. Well, that's very, very helpful. I'm glad you called me back, and I love your videos.
Oh, thank you.
I absolutely love your videos.
Yeah. Well, I hope that we're headed into the season now where we don't need the heater anymore, and then I can make more videos of flying that don't involve engine heaters and snow shovels and the like. But when you were shoveling, I noticed you got pretty huffy puffy. Yeah.
I sort of felt for you. Felt for you out in the cold, trying to shovel that ice out of the hangar. It looked like it was in the seam of where the doors are. It's I don't know if I could take the winners there, but you seem to do it pretty well.
Yeah. Where's home for you? Where are you at today?
Yeah, I'm in Jackson, Tennessee.
Okay.
Mike Kilo Lima, MKL. And you actually flew, one of your videos, you flew to Knoxville. And all my kids went to UT Knoxville, so I was familiar with that airport you flew into. Yeah. So that was a nice video. I really enjoy watching the aviation videos on YouTube, so I'm a big fan.
There's quite a variety of channels, depending on what you want to see, the flying, the technical stuff, just enjoying the nice scenery people fly to.
Right. Plus, I fly Bonanza, and you fly Bonanza, and that Lean of Peak video was excellent, absolutely excellent.
Thank you. Even though if I could do one thing different there, do you happen to remember the opening words of that video?
Well, you put a lot of bloopers. I think it was bloopers in there.
Yeah. No, what I'm referring to is I opened that video with
riot.
"Hello, Bonanza fans," and I didn't even think about it because up to that point I was the Bonanza pilot on YouTube.
Right.
But this Lean of Peak video, of course, applies to really anyone with the piston engine.
Sure. Yep.
And I got a lot of comments back saying, "Hey, why do you say Bonanza? This isn't only for Bonanzas." So
Right.
I wonder if I turn people away with this opening. So something I've got to be more careful about.
I don't know. I think I have an IO 550. I think you have an IO 520 if I'm not mistaken. So, but you're right. I mean, it's any engine really. I mean, Lean of Peak is a topic that many don't want to breach. So because there's opinions both ways, but with a good monitor, it's probably the way to go.
Yeah. Whether it's the way to go or not, I mean, that depends on a lot of things, but certainly it's not something to be scared of or
Sure.
something that will damage your engine or your valves. That's really unfounded, yet it seems to be a very persistent rumor around the airport.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think if anyone who actually listened to the whole thing would realize that it applies to not just Bonanzas.
Yeah. All right. Well,
thanks for calling me, Martin.
For chatting, Ron. It was nice to talk to you. And,
okay.
All the
very
best.
good. I'm really excited.
Okay. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Our next caller is Scott. Scott is calling from Colorado. Hi, Scott. It's Martin Pauly. How are you?
Martin Pauly, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How about you?
I am well. It's a little cold out here in Colorado, but other than that, I'm trying to stay warm.
So, are you in are you in the mountains or in a rural part of Colorado, or whereabout are you?
Yeah, just out in the rural part. We're about 4.5, 5 miles from KFLI. So I'm out at a friend's house helping him get some work done to one of his trucks. So
okay,
we're sitting in here taking a break from the cold for a few minutes, trying to get warmed back up again.
Makes sense. Yeah. All right. So are you a pilot already? Are you training to be a pilot, or do you have a plane? Are you looking for a plane? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I just about a year ago, actually a little bit less, I bought a 1965 PA-24-260, and we picked it up in Iuka, Mississippi, and we actually got a chance to we flew it back to Colorado Springs with some minor work, but I'm in the process of redoing the interior, putting in new avionics, getting the cowling painted. So I'm getting closer to getting ready to get its annual, but I started training again out at K-Fly, and it just seems like life always seems to get in the way. But everything they have is high wing, and I don't know what it is about the Cessnas and the high wings, but I can't get into them like I can this thing. When we flew back from Iuka, Mississippi, I flew most of the way with the help of a licensed pilot, and I did better in this thing than I've ever done in a high wing. So it's so much easier to fly. It's the only problem is being complex and high performance.
Right.
It's definitely a step up from the Cessna, the 182s, the 172s, but it's mine, and that's what I'm going to be flying. So one of the instructors basically said, you might as well start off in this. And that way, you can accomplish your high performance and your complex, and you'll train in the plane that you own. You'll know everything about it.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. But it's so hard to find anybody out here that is either willing, has the time, or can help me get into this. Not to mention the fact that I don't have it annualed yet or anything else. So but it just seems like a constant fight for me, and I just need to find somebody that that has the time that can work with me.
So you're looking for an instructor who is familiar in the Comanche, who can help you get familiar?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You know, I'm thinking about what suggestions I might have for your situation. Here's one that comes to mind. If you've searched locally for an instructor that can help you and haven't quite found the right person, you know, maybe through a type club or the I know there's a website, a forum that specializes in Piper. Maybe you can find an instructor from somewhere else in the country, and then take a week, maybe take some vacation, hire that instructor for a week, and make a nice cross country to wherever this person lives, and then you can fly it back from there. You know, that way, the instructor only needs a one-way airfare to meet you, but you would have a lot. You would be able to pick someone from a much larger audience nationwide, really, and learn the airplane. You know, not just in the pattern in your local area, but really experience it on a cross-country flight, a long cross-country flight. You know, dealing with different airports, different kind of weather, and other situations where the instructor may have some very useful tips for you that could come in handy later.
Yeah, and that's an absolutely great idea. The experience that I got from flying from Iuka down to Colorado Springs, or out to Colorado Springs rather, was phenomenal. I mean, it was you know, I wasn't real comfortable with the landings. You know, they want you to land it on the mains and then touch down the nose, and it's you know, but I had a great person with me, and he did teach me a lot, but I cut myself the other day and started bleeding 100 low lead. So, I mean, I've got aviation in my blood, and I just, the more time that I lose trying to get this thing up in the air and finding somebody that can help me. I guess my biggest thing is right now is I need to get prepped to take the test, because the airplane is one of the worst classrooms in that you can have. But and I've tried several different options, and it just seems like none of the ones that I try to do, you know, for the paying options, they want you to put your nose in a book. And I learn a lot better when I'm on, you know, when I can visualize, when I can see, when I can listen to, you know, stall spins, you know, any of the teaching techniques, and you know, being in a book, it almost puts me to sleep. I'm just not a really good reader when it comes to that kind of stuff. I learn better online, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a full test prep class for the written exam, but there are video classes that you can take. You know, they send you DVDs, or maybe these days that even works online. If you look for the offers from King Schools or Sporties has a good course. Have you looked at those at all?
I did. I kind of poked my nose around in both of those, and there's another one's Flight, Mike Alpha, another one's Jason Shappert. But you know, they want between $150 and $200 a month to do this. Ooh. And yeah, it's I mean, you know, if I can't get my nose into it and something comes up, well, then I'm literally just paying for it to sit there. So I was hoping maybe you had some suggestions as far as, like, you know, a DVD set or something. I just everybody that I've talked to says, you know, you need to take the test first and then take that knowledge that you've learned and apply that while you're in the air, instead of trying to learn the stuff while you're in the airplane, because that's where it gets dangerous.
Well, yeah, I think you can do it in parallel. I think studying for the written, you're learning all that makes more sense. It's more meaningful if you have tasted a little bit of flying. You know, at the same time, you need to get the written out of the way before you can take your check ride. So from my experience, what works best is to do the written and the practical stuff in parallel. I wouldn't completely do the written first and not even start flying until you pass the written exam.
Okay, so you definitely suggest some parallel then.
I would do it in parallel, yes.
Okay. That's an option I'll start looking at then too.
Because again, you will run into a lot of material, a lot of questions on the written, on the ground school portion of your training that really won't make any sense unless you have experienced that on a flight. You know, like airport signage or you know, the limitations for flying. A lot of technical things about the airplane and the engine. It's I think it's a lot. It's going to be easier once you have a few flights in the plane. So yeah, I would do it in parallel.
Okay.
Don't put it on the back burner. I mean, you gotta do it at a good pace, both the practical flying and the studying for the written. You know, otherwise, if you're, and for me at least, if the rate of forgetting is greater than the rate of new learning, you know, then that takes us nowhere. But yeah, it's I've often heard the recommendation to do them both in parallel, and you will find that the whole ground school thing will make a lot more sense if you do it that way.
Okay, all right, I'll definitely look into that too.
And in terms of a DVD set, well, it's been a while since I looked at any of these offerings from Sporties and others. When I first got them, they were on VHS tapes. It tells you that was a while ago. You know, since then, I've seen DVD versions of these courses, which you buy, and I have no idea how much they would be right now. And then there's training material for ground school, as we talked about, but there's also prep material for the written test, different from the training material. The training material is more for understanding, but then there are computer programs or websites or apps for your iPad to help you study the test questions and make you allow you to run some tests, some dry runs for the final test. Have you heard about those?
No, that's what I'm looking for, is to find something like that I can do where I can kind of, you know, get closer to being able to take the test.
Yeah. So a couple of options that I've used personally that have helped me. One is it's a series of red books from a company called Gleim or Gleam. I've yet to find somebody that knows for sure how it's pronounced. Gleim. They make these books with the test questions that you can then go through, check your understanding, to some extent even memorize the questions and the answers. And I believe they also have software. There's another company called Shepherd that makes an online system or apps for a tablet, for an iPad, with the same idea that you can study for the test specifically and do a dry run for the test before you take the actual exam. Many people like these. And they don't replace the ground school because they don't really give you the understanding behind it, but they give you a really good way to check yourself and find out, am I ready for this written exam?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm looking for right there.
All right.
So Gleam or Gleim and Shepherd.
Exactly, yeah.
I got a lot of homework to do tonight.
Okay. Hey, Scott, I wish you good luck. I know you have a really nice airframe with the Comanche, and it looks like you have the more powerful engine. So I hope that will treat you well. I hope you'll enjoy flying it.
Yeah, I can't wait to get her back up in the air.
Yeah, thanks for chatting with me, and wish you all the best.
Martin, thanks for the phone call. I really appreciate what you do.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was Scott from Colorado. Thank you for joining, Scott. And that's it for this time. If you would like to participate in a future episode, go to the website. There's a form there where you can leave me your name, a way to contact you, and a topic you'd like to chat about. And as always, you'll be eligible to win a $25 gift card if you participate in the next show. Date hasn't been announced yet. It'll be on the website when we get closer. Take care. Thanks for joining, and maybe I'll see you at Sun and Fun. Have a good 2019 and a safe flying season. Bye-bye.